Good morning. I think I have to tell someone that I'm no Shah Rukh Khan, so this light really bothers me a bit. But as long as it doesn't bother you and you can see it, I'm comfortable. All of you can see the presentation and the slide. Is there any way we can switch on the lights in the auditorium, please? I'd love to see the audience and the people here. यहाँ की बत्ती जला देंगे? Can you switch the lights on here? All right, so first of all, thank you to the Vishwakarma Institute for giving me an opportunity to come and talk to you. As I've always said, that these are opportunities for me to learn than to be able to give you any kind of advice or gyan, because you guys are the future. You guys are the reason why we are so bullish on India. We are so excited about the opportunity of India. And that's because all of you bring that energy, all of you bring that revolutionary thought process of creating something different and new. So this morning, as I was coming down from our campus in Hinjawadi, Tech Mahindra campus in Hinjawadi, I had a brief conversation with one of your co-students, a guy called Lokesh. And then when I came here, I could spend some time with Kirti madam, who was generous to spend and talk to me. Then Ishank and Atharv. I just feel so excited about the energy that you guys bring together. I think that's the most important activity for any job, any role that you want to do. The energy that you need, the attitude that you need to be able to do it. And what I'm going to talk to you today about is primarily about the exciting opportunity that is in front of you. So you must be wondering that, Jagdish is at the end of the day, works for a company. And by the very definition of entrepreneur, typically means someone who's self-employed, who runs their own business. Is that correct? So why am I here? What am I talking about? Because I'm not self-employed. I work for a company, and I am responsible for certain areas of growth, and that's what I'm doing. Any reason anyone can comment on why entrepreneurship and maybe some of the jobs people do, what is the common connect? Anyone wants to take a guess? But typically entrepreneurship is self-employment. खुद की company बनाएंगे, खुद का business बनाएंगे. Is it okay if most of you understand a little bit of Hindi? Okay, good. Anyone? Yes, sir. And is there a mic for him? Can you be a little louder? Yeah. So, he said create more opportunities for the next level of people. And that's absolutely right. And I think sometimes we have this concept that entrepreneurship is only about creating your own business, starting your own business, which is obviously one of the main reasons why the word of entrepreneurship got started, but also about the fact that everywhere where you will succeed, whether it's if you join a bank, if you join an IT company, if you join a telecom company and will work for a multinational or go abroad, wherever, if you're either self-employed or you run your own business, entrepreneurship will always come in handy as an attitude, because if you have that attitude of what the entrepreneur's attributes are, you will succeed no matter whether you have your own business or you're working for someone. I'll take the example of Kirti madam here. If she has to succeed in her role, she will create these events like your Ishank and Atharv and Lokesh. Every one of these guys did. that attitude of going the extra mile, thinking about the business as my own, and then succeeding and trying to create as if it's my own business. So this morning, I don't know whether Lokesh heard, I was talking to one of my colleagues about a proposal or a pitch that we are making to a large airlines about how to create a joint venture. And I was asking him the same question, and I was asking myself the same question, that, sometimes we get bogged down into saying that in the business corporate world, there are rules and there is a structure and you have to follow it. Absolutely you have to. But those who succeed are the ones who treat it as their own business. Within that rule, within that structure, what would you do in order to be able to run the business? So please treat the few slides that I'm going to talk to you about as not just about creating new businesses. I had, luckily for myself, I had the opportunity to create a new startup, a new company within Tech Mahindra. And this was an opportunity that I had where the mobile business was starting. This is in 2006 when a lot of mobility was happening. People were trying to create new applications, a lot of new devices. This was the starting point of almost Apple and Android, or iOS and Android coming into the field, and people starting to recognize that businesses, enterprises, need to take advantage of the mobile service to do their business and to do their work. That's called enterprise mobility. And we stuck a JV with Motorola, as in Tech Mahindra formed a JV with Motorola, and I became the startup CEO of that company and built the business from there to about 1,500 people, about a little more than $100 million of business. And then finally, there was an opportunity where Motorola's unit got bought over by Google, so we were able to move the whole business inside. Then we also created 3 or 4 such direct-to-consumer businesses. Like, for example, created a business around blue-collared workers. You guys would have heard of Naukri? Naukri.com, suna hoga? So we created a company called saralrozgar.com. Saral Rozgar was about blue-collared workers and their ability to be able to drive business across like a marketplace. People know what a blue-collared worker is? Anyone? Blue-collared workers, जानते हैं आप? No. Your driver, your maid, your carpenter, your plumber, your electrician, people are called blue-collared workers. And what we all typically end up doing are white-collar jobs. It's a very traditional way of looking at business, because most corporate world people go to jobs wearing what you guys are wearing, which is a white shirt, which means it has a white collar. And normally factory and those kind of people tend to wear a lot of blue-collared. So that's why blue-collar. But there was no organized sector for these blue-collar jobs. Right? So we created an organized sector for saying that how can I create, rather than people coming to these mandis for their day jobs or the market for their day jobs, how can I create an opportunity for these guys to be able to drive and look at a place where they can get jobs. So this is where we created this kind of marketplace where employers and employees would come, called Saral Rozgar. If you Google it, you'll probably find something about it. We shut it down. I failed. I failed in scaling it up from taking it to about 6 million people on that platform to be able to make it revenue and successful from a business perspective. I failed. We also then started within this unit a payment wallet. This was the days of the payment bank and the wallet license, and my company, that startup that I had created, started a wallet called Mobo Money. This was about tap and pay on your phone, and this was before Paytm. And we created technology before Paytm. We launched it in almost all Kirana stores to be able to pick it up in Delhi. We again failed. So the point I'm trying to tell you is, an entrepreneur's first key attribute, I personally feel, is never get tired of trying new things. Never get tired of being able to give vision to your idea The guy who came in the beginning, I'm sure he has I think you should give him a second round of applause, because he was absolutely creative. और उसको तो बता देना कि उसकी अगर नौकरी नहीं लगी तो उसको फिल्म वर्ल्ड में तो मिल जाएगा. Because he's such a good actor, right? That guy who came on board, what's his name? No. Was the guy Atharva? The one who opened it? Okay. I thought Atharva was the guy who was sitting next to me. Uska bhi naam Atharva hai, uska bhi naam Atharva hai. Acha, acha. Okay. So the whole idea was that at the end of the day, you have to build an attitude. There is no formula for being an entrepreneur. The attitude for being an entrepreneur is one who's constantly ready to, and he talked about risk taking. He talked about giving it everything. There is no plan B. If plan A doesn't work, you're ready to sync with it. And again start. So in a corporate world, for me, when I did some of these things, it was a risky job. Because at the end of the day, if I fail on one part of the business worked, thankfully, but some of these other direct-to-consumer businesses failed for me. And that was a risk, because that would mean that people who were with me in PAR, who are doing regular business development, markets in Tech Mahindra, and if they were doing their jobs well, they will succeed. But that's the very attitude of an entrepreneur. I think the most important message that I can leave with you here is the fact that entrepreneurs are those whose first attitude is that never say die. You will constantly be in a model where you will not accept defeat. You will be ready to be able to try out new ideas. You'll be ready to accept failure and learn from the failure and pivot. If you're ready to do these 4 things, you're an entrepreneur, whether you're working for a company or you're creating your own business. But I think those attitudes you'll have to ask for. Always the power lies in the idea. So therefore, this message here is primarily about telling people that at the end of the day, the power is in the innovation, the idea. And a lot of people have seen youngsters who'll tell me that, when I graduate, I want to do a startup. And I have always asked people that, what is this startup about? Now that I will think through, but I want to do a startup. To me, I think that's not the right model. The idea is the reason why you create a startup, not the other way around. Startup, if you are doing a startup because, Mark Zuckerberg is a multi-billionaire, or Vijay Shekhar Sharma from Paytm is a multi-billionaire, and therefore we should do a startup, that's the very, very wrong reason, according to me, to do a startup. If money making is the only reason you are going to start being a startup, that to me is the wrong starting point. The power of the idea and the belief in the power of the idea to disrupt, to change, and to change the way that particular area or process is done is why a startup is born. And I think give ideas, and I was talking to Ishank while we were waiting for this, and he said that, the environment in this place, we are still a much smaller college compared to a IIT or someone like that, and I was asking him which university or college has a good startup ecosystem. So he said IIT Bombay, which I agree. I'm part of IIT Bombay's startup incubation group, and I advise them on some of their solutions and get a chance to hear more than advice. And yes, that's a large brand. They have a great alumnus, and they'll always get much visibility than what probably VIT or your institute gets. But like I said, some things you don't change. You live with it, but you make the most of it. What we're going to talk about is how do you make sure that what you don't have doesn't become the focus. What you have becomes the focus. And how do you build on that? Having is more important than looking around. So I was telling him that when I draw inspiration from people who came up from no roots and made them work. Whether it's in the corporate world, it's in our own, a big inspiration is my CEO and MD, C.P. Gurnani. He came from a very, very basic setup, not from the IT world, has created today the 6th largest IT company, the 5th largest IT company from India. When I joined this company, it was 70 people. Today, we are 170,000 people. That's the size and the scale at which this business has grown. And we've all played an entrepreneurship role. When I look at a film star, I look at people like Shah Rukh more than someone else, because I look at him and say, listen, this guy came from nowhere and created a career for himself. He could have complained saying, the other actor is 6 feet tall, he's more handsome, he's more good looking, his dances better, someone else, sings better. What do I have? So I have all these gaps. So the first chance, if you look at a cricketer, you look at someone like a Sachin or a Virat Kohli, they came from very, very basic areas, no cricketing background, and still proved that they can be the best in the world. That belief is what I think you guys will need to run with, and look at your strengths. I was going to talk about some of the strengths that you have. So if you move to the next slide. I talked about this, and I think the main reason I wanted to make sure that we understand that an entrepreneur is that guy that is solving problems, but also creating opportunities. What's the biggest example of creating opportunities? The two biggest examples of creating opportunities to me are the big example of Henry Ford, who was the founder of Ford Motor Company, and Bill Gates, and Steve Jobs. Especially because I sometimes think that we get focused too much on trying to solve problems, which is very important, but also those are successful who are looking at creating new opportunities, which doesn't exist. The famous Henry Ford statement was that if I would have asked people what they want when he built Ford Motor Company, people would have said faster horses. Because that's all they used, horses. Similarly, Steve Jobs, when he built Apple and the iPhone, if you would have asked people what kind of a phone do you want, they would have said bigger, smaller, speaks louder, that kind of stuff. He changed the paradigm where no camera now exists, no music system now exists. Everything is on that phone. And that was decided by him because he saw the opportunity that does not exist. It's not always about problem solving, but it's also about identifying a new niche, a new opportunity in that world. If you move to the next slide. And the reason I talked about this, and I'm glad you played the national anthem, because it's a very important thing to be proud of one's nation. And I think the reason is not jingoism, not about saying that, that country is bad or that country is bad. It's about, again, what's our strength? What do you believe in? And I think we have such tremendous potential. We have such immense capability with the ecosystem that we have created. And look at the results. Look at the way we have actually built about it, from where we were to what the kind of growth it has been just in the startup ecosystem. The reason I'm saying that is that there are people, and look at the last line, 48% of our Indian startups today come from tier 2, tier 3 cities. So opportunities exist where minds work. Opportunities open up where people are ready to take a challenge and give it a complete try. That's the opportunity of entrepreneurship, and that's the opportunity of an entrepreneurial attitude. If you move to the next slide. The question that I was asking all of you and was asking the second question was, are you making the most of what you're doing? If you move to the next slide. Today, Pune at one point was referred to as the Oxford of the East, right? You are part of that Oxford. You are part of that ecosystem. Knowledge is at the heart of creating anything new. Are you taking advantage of it? Are you building on it? Or we can look at other systems around us and say they've got better, Bangalore has got better weather, Haryana, Gurgaon has closer to the airport, someone else will have some other reason for being successful. What are your reasons for being successful? And you're right here. You're right here in terms of 4,000 tech startups and companies like Tech Mahindra and many more, larger than us, smaller than us, medium-sized, extremely sized companies of IT and tech environment. So I'll bring in a conversation here because a lot of you might be thinking that this is a time when people are thinking about what's going to happen. There's a recession that's being talked about in the West, and we are a global economy. So, though India is doing very well, we can't be completely insulated. There will be a knock-on effect. But the good part of being in the tech world, which I think most of you are from, is the opportunity that in 2009, when the global financial crisis happened, the gap between when the stock market dropped or the market dropped and the technology spend dropped was 2x of the drop. What that means is, suppose the spend was 100 and it became 100 to 80, 20 points dropped. The tech spend dropped by 40. Then when COVID hit, there was again a drop, right? That time the tech spend dropped by 10%, not by double, right? So one same drop as this. This time, they're saying that probably if the recession happens, it'll be same or nearby same, which basically means technology is at the core of every business. It's not something which is sitting outside and is a discretionary spend. It's a spend that you'll have to do if you have to live and run your business. So you are in a very good place, irrespective of whether the economy goes through a good patch or a bad patch. So the opportunity of creating new business, new solutions is tremendously high. If you move to the next slide. And when I was seeing this, I had someone from my office do a little bit of research on your institute and what does it do. You have such tremendous capabilities that you have built here. You've got these centers. They may not be the world's best. They may not be the one that you can compare with an MIT or a Stanford or something like that. But having this and building it and making it MIT or Stanford quality is dependent on you. How many experiments are you doing? How many problems are you trying to solve? Are you talking to a company in Pune? Pune is the hub of manufacturing, right? So many manufacturing companies have set up base here, multinationals, Swedish companies, and Indian companies that have base here. They provide this. It's becoming it is a large hub for IT companies. How do you take advantage of those and solve their problems? How do you go and meet their people and solve their problems? Experiment in 15 of them, 14 of them you'll fail, 1 you will succeed. But your institute has created an environment for you to experiment on. The question to ask is, how many of them are doing it? Doesn't matter whether you end up becoming a successful entrepreneur with your own startup. That attitude will almost be expected if you're looking for a job also in any company. They'll expect you to be an entrepreneur on your job, which basically means take the initiative, take risks, learn from failures, pivot yourself, and go back again. Get up and fight again. If you move. One of the big things is about industry relations, and I think all of you are all aware of it, that how does this build together in the startup ecosystem? How many of you are trying to do co-ops? How many of you are trying to do internships? How many of those are just for the certificate कि इस summer में कुछ तो करना पड़ेगा? Or versus trying to create something that will probably challenge the person. I know of a friend's son who did his internship for Tesla, and he proved that their braking software will have a bug in it in the 3-month period. They offered him a job. The point is not whether you got a job with Tesla or not, but the intensity with what he worked on was to figure out what problem and what benefit he can do. And then I have people who will come and say, sir, 2-4-6 हफ्ते की बात है, आप इसके बाद एक सर्टिफिकेट दे दीजिए हमको. So if that's attitude needs to change with solving problems across the board. If you change this to, I was looking through and seeing who are the people that you have as leaders here, and some very eminent people across the board who you should take advantage of. That these are people that, not too long back, actually quite a few years back, 30 years back, I was also sitting in one of those chairs out there. And I had a very different attitude towards, obviously, how to get into work, job, and so forth, and like anyone else. But when I see people around now, they are a lot more focused. The environment is a lot better. People are trying to be entrepreneurial, experimental. So take advantage of their environment significantly. If you move to the next one. And I looked at some of the people that probably have done well, and I'm assuming these are from your institute that have graduated from. And these are only examples of similar people that were sitting here one day, and they have started it, so why can't you? As the attitude and the problem-solving ability and looking for solutions to solve. Someone was telling me that, one of the problems we are solving is very local. I said, doesn't matter. One day a Uber started because some guy couldn't get a taxi. Your problem can become scalable. Please don't go by templates. The big advantage you have in India is that we have such massive population that if you get to about 10 to 15% of solving the problem, you've cracked it. But doesn't matter if you haven't cracked it. You learned on the way, because that's what you'd be expected to know every time, whether you are in your own business or work. If you move. Similarly, I looked at some of the others who've moved to jobs who are pretty similar. And this is Sachin. Sachin was just recognized as a distinguished alumni. He works with Tech Mahindra, is a colleague of mine in the manufacturing vertical, advises people like Mercedes-Benz, advises people like BMW on what their EV or electric vehicle strategy should look like, and the opportunity beyond that. So it's right here that these brilliant minds have got incubated. It's right here that these solutions have got incubated. It's yours to take and build on that opportunity. If there is one message that I want to leave with you today, is don't shy away from not trying something new. Just because you think that, what happens if this fails? What happens if 10,000 people don't take it? What happens if the scale doesn't grow up? Don't worry about too many of the negatives. Think about the positives. What happens if it succeeds? What happens if 10,000 people accept it? What happens if you are able to disrupt something and create something simpler? That's the question that you should be asking. So if you look at finally some of the collaborations that we do, someone asked me, how do we do it in Tech Mahindra? We have a concept called a Maker's Lab. Number of interns approached were 150 to 95. We did 15 number of projects from 10 colleges. This is where we call it Maker's Lab, and we've got about 20 locations around the world where our associates and startup ecosystem come together and solve a problem or look for an opportunity. So whether they are drones that we have or robots that we have created to help Indian Army to detect mines, or whether it's about agriculture, drones used to drop seeds, all of them have come from our Maker's Lab. And so each of these decisions, and we've done many, many interesting such things. For example, we've created a markup language, basically a coding language that has been created that can be used in 32 dialects. So it doesn't limit that if you don't know English, you can't write software. So that's called BHML, Bharat Markup Language. We have given it to the government of India. Similarly, there is a lot of work that we do around this area. Get associated with similar labs. Join them. Don't worry for the summer program to start or end. Do it throughout the year. Because one more thing about entrepreneurship is that, and I know one of my very known person got trolled for this, for saying that there is no limit to hard work, and if there's a quality of life-work balance, then you have to decide which one to choose from. Entrepreneurship is going to be a lot like that, whether in the company or your own. 16 hours, 18 hours of work, of ideas, of thoughts, of failures and work. If you want to be an entrepreneur, sign up for that. If you don't want to be and want to make sure that you tour the world and take a vacation every 2 weeks, then maybe startup is not your place. So you have to decide. There's nothing right or wrong about any of this. Everyone has a choice to live their lives the way they want to. But certain things require certain level of intensity, and certain things don't require that level of intensity. You can't always have best of both worlds. So best of is to accept it. If you move. So finally, I ask this question of myself when I am at crossroads on everything. I am asking the question of yourself. Whenever you are at a crossroad, no one else except you are the reason for succession or success or failure. It's no one else. With the environment during art, a lot of people from my genre, when I graduated in 93, 30 years back. So, a lot of people from that genre would come, you know, like your fathers would tell, your uncles would tell, हमारे ज़माने में ऐसा तो था नहीं, तुम लोगों के सब ज़माने में सब कुछ था. It was dependent on उस समय भी people were being successful, with समय भी people were not being successful. Now also people will succeed, now also people will fail. Environments will change. You have the environment that you have. You can't change anything else other than that. You can only make the best of it. So you are the only reason you'll succeed. And finally, the best way to define future, and you've got such a good name, Vishwapreneur', which is really global entrepreneurs. Vishwa meaning global, is to predict the future, is to try and start to create it. You are here to create the future. Don't shy away from it. Thank you. Questions I'm happy to take. If anyone.
Hello, sir. First of all, thank you so much for guiding us. Myself, Aniket Supekar, and as
Sorry, I couldn't catch your name.
Aniket Supekar.
Aniket.
Yes, sir. As we have seen in the earlier slides, that you tell that entrepreneurship is all about the solving the problems, but there are some brands like Coca-Cola, they won't be solving any problems. So, what is the mindset behind their business model?
No, they're not solving problems, but they're also creating opportunities. Remember, the entrepreneurship or anything, any new business idea is not formed by only solving. I said that in the very beginning.
Yes.
It's not about only solving problems. It's also about identifying what we call as white space. No one has done it, right?
Yes, sir, yes.
Can I create an opportunity? So Coke is thinking, so someone was telling me, actually, incidentally you're asking, someone was telling me that Coke is now trying to do personalized drinks. And it's starting to do that with US, where you could probably choose that this flavor and that flavor and this flavor. And if you order 24 cans, they'll ship it to you, created a Coke exactly designed for your area, your taste. That I like raspberry and whatever, slightly more fizz. And they'll be able to create. So there are ideas and innovation everywhere. There's nothing stopping you to innovate on every product that you are in front of. And Coke's business is to be able to make sure that you choose them whenever you're thirsty.
Yes. Got it, sir. Thank you.
I'll tell you something interesting we are doing for one of them in Tech Mahindra. This is technology at the best, and we are hoping this will scale. So, you know, they have these sports drinks, right? Gatorade types, which people drink when they're going to do exercise or after exercise, etc. But all our bodies are different. We all have different metabolism. Our loss of a salt or loss of anything else is going to be very different because of the height, weight, exercise, calorie burn, whatever. Every individual is different. So we are doing some work with a large company, a large similar brand, where we say that after your exercise, with the vending machine, you should just put your hand. And it will read the loss of body and salt and weight and water and all that, and create the drink for you, rather than everyone drinking the same Gatorade. That's innovation. That's creating a new idea, a new product for everything. When technology is available to you, why not? Anyone else?
Hello, sir. Myself, Yusuf Motawala. My question is, when we work in the entrepreneurship mindset, we work in a group. And how to find the people that are correct for our motive or the problem solving, and the correct people to be in the group and help it?
I think it's the same as any corporate world, you know. Always look for people who are complementing you. Don't look for people who are all like you. Then there is no disruptive idea. Why is diversity so important in companies? Not because it's a tick in the box that we need to have so many women in the company, so many other gender, race or color, and so on and so forth. But the reason is because every time you bring in different people, they challenge your idea and they will constantly make in a new idea. So when you build teams, look for people who are complementing you. And therefore, your own self-assessment of what you are good at and what you are not good at is very important. There are techniques to find out, scientific techniques, and there are friends and coaches that will tell you what are your strengths. Everyone has, all of us here have some strengths and some weaknesses. Better is to find teams that plug in those weaknesses. Most of the times we don't do it because we say कि वो फिर से मेरे को question ही पूछेगा यार और उसको मेरे से ज़्यादा जानता है इसके बारे में. So why the hell do I bring him? It's probably best to bring those people in, but don't compromise on attitude. If the attitude for a person is not right, however talented he is, as in he's ready to work hard, ready to put in those number of hours, and ready to be able to have that same end goal as what you are trying to do, then it's perfectly fine. Otherwise, however talented people are, don't build teams within them.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Yusuf. One final question here, please, and then I'll have to wrap it, please. Here. Acha.
First of all, thank you, sir, for the wonderful speech. My name is Basil, and so my question was regarding a startup that you mentioned, Salar Rozgar.
Saral Rozgar. Saral means easy,
Saral
Rozgar means
yeah.
Naukri.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you faced an issue due to for upscaling it. So like your company, it was focused on blue collar jobs, and right now we have urban clap and stuff which have the similar or like similar goal. So if you don't mind, can you share with us what was the issue with upscaling it? Because it's a wonderful idea for blue collar jobs. Not much of attention is paid to them. So if you don't mind, briefly just explain to us what was the shortcoming for upscaling it.
So two things. I think upscaling wasn't the problem. I told you we had 6 million people on the base. And we had about 3,000 distribution centers from where we were doing this business. We are tied up with kirana shops where people, we had to find out where blue-collared people go to buy stuff. कहीं पे साबुन खरीदने जाते हैं, कहीं पे तेल, कहीं पे कुछ, वहाँ पे we used to sort of target them. But I think the model that we failed on is the fact that we went too wide, too fast. And I think we should have focused on one city, get it right, and then go. Because there was no koi blue-collared workers that come to Delhi or to Bombay or to Pune. They're looking for jobs here. It's not, we were in the mindset of saying it's very mobile and connected and we need to capture a very wide, bigger market fast. So my learning was that should have got it successful in one region, one market, because people work in that area, and got it, then replicated it, right? So that was first mistake. Second is, I think I wouldn't call it luck, but we should have done a lot more on the fact we did not see the adoption of smartphones and the prices coming down to 5,000. Everyone has a smartphone, right? Not just you and me, but the security guard, the waiter, everyone has a smartphone. And that opportunity, I think we missed because the app or the solution should have moved more to a smartphone-based model rather than a model. We had assumed that it's got basic phones. People had got basic phones. It was working for a while, but it wasn't capturing data and intelligence and pulling it back to him. So those were some. So technology adoption and keeping a tab on saying what technology is changing fast, how do I make sure that I'm able to do it and become relevant is probably the two reasons.
So, sir, the second point, basically adaptability to your environment. And the
And
first,
changing fast.
yeah, changing fast, evolving at a faster pace. And I think the first one, we can summarize it as first specializing it, getting to know your thing much better, and then
Scaling it.
Yeah, scaling it, moving around.
I think that was the bigger problem. We had
Yeah.
the right technology, but we scaled too fast. We were
Yeah.
thinking like Tech Mahindra. Saral Rozgar was not Tech Mahindra, right? So that was the big problem. And Urban Clap is not about blue-collar jobs.
Okay. Okay. So sorry,
Urban
sir.
Club is about getting them jobs to do, but it's not about employment.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's been absolutely fantastic to be here, and wish you all the best. I'm sure thousands of you will become entrepreneurs and make this place the brand that gets recognized for the entrepreneurship skills that you built together. Wish you the very best. Thank you.